Difficulty completing familiar tasks at work, home, or leisure. Sometimes they have difficulty doing that. They may have difficulty driving to a familiar location, or remembering the rules of a favorite game. Now, driving to a location in the early stages of the disease again, I followed my mother one day to the grocery store. I wanted to observe her driving. And my mother was a very law-abiding citizen. She got in her car and she adjusted her mirrors and she put her seatbelt on and she, did everything you're supposed to do when you get in a car to get ready to go somewhere. She backed out of her driveway, she went up the street, and she did not know that I was following her. And she got up to the stop sign, and she did not turn her turn signal on. That was my first clue that, something's not right here, because she always used her turn signal. And she sat at that stop sign, and she looked, and she looked. And she did that several times. There was no traffic coming. But she had already, in my mind, she had already forgotten where she was going and how to get there. So, completing familiar tasks, just going to the grocery store. And I'll let you know, my mother lived in Albion, and the population there is 1,200. They only have one grocery store, so it's not like she had a lot of choices. And she had lived there several years. I always like that they may forget the rules of a game that they've played often. Now, my 9-year-old nephew makes up the rules to the games. So if you're playing a game with someone that you've always played and they're all of a sudden making up their own rules to the game, they might have a little something going on. I don't think I would question them about it, but just observe a little bit. So, what is typical? Occasionally needing help to set the microwave or record a television show. Well, I got to tell you right now, I don't know how to record a show on my DVD or whatever it's called. I would have to call in my nephew and my niece and say, all right, this is what I want to record. Setting on the microwaves. How many of you had microwaves when they very first came out? Okay, some of you did. And most of those microwaves were all dials, weren't they? They were all dials. Now they're push button. A lot of them are push button. I have actually seen where some of the manufacturers are coming back out with the dials. But I mean, my goodness, if we go from the dial to, and I mean, my microwave at home, I've got time defrost, frost, popcorn, express cook. My clock is on there. Different settings. My goodness. All I want to do is pop a bag of popcorn. And I don't need all these buttons. So that's difficulty completing familiar tasks. Disorientation of time and place. With someone in the early stages, this can be a problem. My mother was very good at always having the newspaper sitting next to her. And I could ask her, Mother, what's today? And she'd look down at that paper and she'd say, well, this is Wednesday, November the 10th. Great! Well, you know what? That's okay as long as that's today's paper sitting there. So a lot of times they may not remember what the day is or even the place. One of my and I do have a lot of favorite memories. I mean, I learned a lot with my mom, but I do have a lot of favorite memories. And losing track of time and place, my mother always put her Christmas tree up probably the week before Christmas. We never put it up real early. We lived in a small house, small space, so you put it up and you took it down. Well, one year in my infinite wisdom and my busy schedule, I decided I was going to put Mom's Christmas tree up the weekend after Thanksgiving because it fit into my schedule. So, we put the tree up, we decorated it, we did the whole 9 yards. I went down the following week to take her to the grocery store and the beauty shop and everything, and I walk in the house and the tree's gone. It's gone. I'm like, Mom, what'd you do with the tree? What tree? The Christmas tree. Well, why would I have a Christmas tree up? It's not Christmas time. Okay, well, let's get it out and let's put it up because it's going to be Christmas time soon. In a few weeks. So we got it out. We put it up again. The next week when I went down, guess what? It was gone again. So she was not oriented to the season of the year she was not oriented to time or season. I finally, after the third time of putting the tree up and taking it down, I finally bought her a 3-foot tree that was already lit, and we just set that out, and that stayed out till after Christmas. It was great. So you kind of learn the battles you choose there to fight, the ones that you just need to let go. And I always tell everybody, one of the other things that I learned early on was, thank you, David, was you never want to argue with someone who has Alzheimer's disease. You really don't want to argue with them. And I will tell you right up front, I love to argue, especially when I know I'm right. But I can tell you now, it pays no dividends to argue with someone who has Alzheimer's. I would argue with my mother, and I would be the one who would become upset. And I would drive my 12 miles home, and usually I was in tears. And I would get home, and I'd call my mom, and I'd say, "Hi, Mom, how are you?" And she'd say, "I'm doing pretty good. When are we going to go to the grocery store?" And we'd already been. But she didn't remember the argument. So, having said that, there are some forgiving things about being forgetful. Not a lot, but a few. So what's typical? Getting confused about the day of the week, but figuring it out later. I recently went on vacation. So therefore, I didn't have a calendar in front of me every day. I didn't have my phone in front of me that said what the day was. And quite honestly, I really didn't care what day it was. But if we don't have those cues in front of us sometimes, we forget what day it is. But we usually remember, oh yeah, tomorrow's Thursday, then Sunday we're going to have to go to church, and so every now and then it's okay to forget what day it is. It's quite all right.